Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Vazquez, and I'm a CS for All Teachers ambassador, and I'm the Director of Educator Training and School Partnerships with a Minnesota-based nonprofit called Code Savvy. Thanks for joining us for this CS for All Teachers video mini-series all about equity and access in computer science education. Let's get started.
In this video, we'll dig into identity and educational equity within computer science education. The first aspect of identity that we'll dig into together is the identity of the educator. As educators, we influence so much of what happens in our classroom and our classroom atmosphere. Truly, we teach who we are. And as represented through this quote by Shiraki Hawley, when we recognize our own identity and our identity markers and how they might influence our presence and awareness in the classroom, we can also identify areas where we might differ from our students and how we can work to create a more empathetic and inclusive space. When we talk about identity, we're talking about how we each define who we are. We are complex, multifaceted individuals with many aspects that make us the person we are. Some of those things might be biological, others might be socially constructed. And we'll dig in just a moment to which aspects of our identity we find most salient, or maybe that we're most aware of, or that we identify with most. In working to understand our identity, we can consider different identity markers, such as those pictured here or others, and how they might show up for us in different scenarios or through different lenses. This activity is adapted from the Safe Zone project and was introduced to me by my colleagues Vanessa Jones and Alan Antoine. In it, we think about which identity markers are we most aware of in the classroom? Which of our identity markers are we least aware of? How might our identity markers influence our choices as teachers? Within our conversation of identity, it's essential to understand intersectionality. As defined by Kimberly Crenshaw, intersectionality is a prism for understanding how multiple forms of inequality or discrimination can compound to create obstacles that are not often understood within conventional ways of thinking. We consider how power, discrimination, and privilege may converge to play out within educational settings, and we commit ourselves to understanding how we can combat them within educational settings. Now that we've spent some time considering our own identities as educators and had a brief introduction to intersectionality, let's shift the focus now towards our students. Let's consider how we might center our students' identities within our computer science classrooms, and how the design and implementation of our computer science practices and content and programs might invite a more complex understanding of our students' cultures and identities. The first step might be to create identity-safe classrooms, which Dr. Dorothy Steele describes as classrooms in which teachers strive to ensure that student identities are seen as an asset rather than a barrier to success in the classroom. This is especially important in computer science, where we're working to counteract historically excluding groups of students, especially female identifying students, students of color, English learners, and students with disabilities. What might be a good first step in creating an identity-first classroom? Well, in a study by Coppola, Woodard, and Vaughn, they describe a unit that begins with a class discussion about students' own perceptions of their cultures and identities. This is an image of an anchor chart that was developed by students through that discussion. For the remainder of the unit, students used this anchor chart as a basis for defining their readings, projects, and conversation. Identity-safe classrooms are essential in creating educational equity, which is where each child receives what they need to develop to their full academic and social potential. In order to do this, we have to develop ourselves as leaders who can transform our institutions by eliminating inequitable practices and cultivating our students' unique gifts, talents, and interests so that successes, failures, and participation are no longer predictable by student identity. The final piece of each of our videos in this mini-series includes a reflect and respond, a chance for you to consider a few questions and to reach out on social media or via the link below to let us know what you think. What is one aspect of your identity that you are especially aware of as an educator? What is one way you can center your students' identities in your CS classroom? And what is one question or challenge that you might face as you're working to center identity in your CS class? Thanks so much for joining us for this video where we talked about identity and educational equity within the computer science classroom. We hope to see you again soon for our next video in the CS for All Teachers Equity and Access mini-series. I'm Andrea Vazquez, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks!